obviously we have a pretty amazing guest that you guys have probably already heard about, but we're going to introduce you here, and we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to let him kind of tell his story, and hopefully it impacts you the way it did me when I first met him about 5 or 6 years ago. I want to introduce you to his neighbor real quick. His neighbor's just going to stand and say just a couple words, and then we're going to have our conversation.
Thank you so much. Hey, by raise of hands, how many of y'all are military, the spouse of military, the kids of military, any military? Well done, and thank you so much for your service. And secondly, I want to thank this gentleman here and his wife Angela for hosting this event. It is phenomenal. Please give them applause. And finally, I have been lucky in life to move into a neighborhood whereby this gentleman to my right was or is a neighbor of mine. And prior to knowing what he did in life, all the acclaim and the acknowledgments, I got to know him as a person. He was not a braggart of any kind. In fact, I didn't even know about his military experience. But what he taught me was humility, virtue, integrity, and love. And I think that they are the four most important qualities that an individual could ever cherish and want to behold. And I don't know where he got that. It wasn't from his experience in the military, but they were part of his being, and he carried those qualities over. And now, what he'll say is tonight, I'm blessed. I'm blessed with longevity, and I want him to serve these youngsters right here and others as an example to follow with those four qualities. They're tremendous. And again, what he'll say, and I don't want to preempt him, is that his longevity is due to three things: a glass of red wine, the love of a good woman, and the belief in the Almighty. So please honor this man accordingly, and please thank Shane and Angela the best way that you can. And thank you for being here. And for those families that are a part of the military, thank you so much for your service, and God bless you.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm so honored because it's Veterans Day, right? And to think that I know this guy had a lot of opportunity and a lot of people asking for his time, and the fact that he chose to be with us, I'm just honored because he was gracious enough to come hang out with us and just kind of let me through him tell his story. And so it's such a fascinating story. So I used to have another restaurant here in town, and that's where I met him the first time. And it's pretty when I met him, then I knew that he was a World War II veteran. And so everybody knows, if you saw the socials that we posted today, Cledis was my grandfather, who was also a World War II veteran, and also everything that he just described Mr. Jerry as was also Cledis. And so our mission is to give back and to be generous and to take care of those in need. And so that's all built on the quality of a human that Cledis was as my grandfather. And so I just saw a lot of that in Mr. Jerry, and I've always wanted to do something with him, and I'm so honored that he's here and chatting with us. And so without further ado, Mr. Jerry Neal.
Thank you, everybody. Glad to be here with you.
All right. Is our mic on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I've got my bourbon. You've got your red wine. If you need more, you know, this could end up being a tell-all if you get too much wine in you, right? No.
Not driving, so okay.
Oh, he said he's not driving, so okay, good. All right, so we are going to we're going to get into the World War II, the D-Day, the story that intrigues everyone. But I just kind of wanted to just take a minute and just kind of like find out who you are. Like where were you raised, and when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I just wanted to survive. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1921. So you young people that mathematics can figure out how old I am.
That was a great year, right?
Good year. Do you want me to tell me?
Yeah. So what did you want to be when you grew up? Like back then?
Who knew?
Yeah.
All we did, we were 10 decades of the Great Depression, and all we had to do was to find a job. That was
right.
Just to get a job,
So
just to make some money to live on. That was the goal. I didn't think about college, universities, or anything like that because it was impossible. There were no Pell Grants or anything of that nature. So when I graduated from high school in 1938, I went in to start looking for jobs. And the only thing that you could look for, a kid of my age, was what they used to call office boys. That was a kid that they used in large offices to be gophers, to take the mail around and all that kind of stuff. And so I opened up the pages, the employment pages of the Kansas City Star, which was the daily newspaper, and go to the employment pages, which was, during that time, there was pages along people looking for work. And you'd see, okay, there was some job, some company downtown Kansas City was looking to hire an office boy, one. Well, I'd get on the streetcar out of where we were living and drive and go downtown and go into that office building, and I would find that there'd be a line for one job, 25 cents an hour job, that would be in the lobby, out the door of the large building, down the street, around the corner. And you get in line, and maybe 2 or 3 hours later, you actually get up to a person that's doing the interviewing, and they'd ask you simple questions. And the first thing they'd ask you is, did you have any experience as an office boy? I said, no. Well, too bad, because we need somebody with experience. Well, I said to myself as I left, how do you get experience if you can't get a job? You know, that was a simple question, just a little simple job. And in any event, long story short, I finally ended up by working out my tuition at a radio trade school. And took me a year at 25 cents an hour to work out my tuition. When I finally worked that out, and I went to the school, and they went bankrupt 4 months after I started school. But in any event, now I had experience. I now had experience as an office boy. You know? And I did get a job as an office boy with a large corporation downtown Kansas City, Flour Mills of America. And that was what I was doing. I started as an office boy, and then they gave me the opportunity to do some bookkeeping, and they call it bookkeeping, not accounting work. And I started going to night school to learn accounting, and that's what I was doing when I went into the service. So that was my, just to make a little bit of money, 25 cents an hour. That was quite a goal at the time.
So let's talk about the service. So when did you make the decision to join the Army, and how old were you when that happened? And let's talk about that process just a little bit.
Well, I'm about 2 years out of high school, and I knew we were, because the Congress had just passed a law starting up the draft, or they called it conscription at the time, and everybody that was a certain age got a draft card, which rated them as to their availability to be called in. And my boyhood friend and I we grew up together. We'd gotten our draft cards, and we were 1A, which was prime fodder to be going into the service. So we were driving around, and we were just trying to figure out, we don't want to be drafted, we want to choose a service that we want to go into. And I couldn't figure out the service I wanted to go into. I didn't want to go into the Army because all I could recall from the Army experiences of World War I and trench warfare and poisonous gases. And they used a lot of it in World War I. So I said, no, I don't think I want to be Army. And Navy, well, there wasn't any water around Kansas City, so Navy wasn't even in my thoughts to do something with water. But in any event, as we were driving around this little Model A Ford, my boyhood friend and I had, we had a little radio that was screwed into the underneath the instrument panel, and we heard this. Just imagine this: the antenna for this radio was a wire. We drilled a hole in the floorboard and stuck it through the floor, and it drugged on the street, and that was our antenna. You see that? In any event, we heard this announcer talking about that the Army was thinking about setting up a new strategy of not only parachuting troops behind enemy lines, but to put them in gliders and put them in and glide them in. I didn't even know what a glider was. I didn't know what an airplane was, frankly. In any event, he went on to announce that the requirements would be, they were looking to be candidates to be trained to be glider pilots. And the criteria was you were to take the United States Army Air Corps Aviation Cadet Examination and fail it. Well, I looked at my boyhood friend and I said, well, we can do that. Anyway, we took the test. It was in the courthouse in Kansas City, Kansas, and both of us went over there one morning early, take the test, and there was a bunch of young people in there to take the test, and most of them were kids out of colleges. It's hard to imagine this. Glenn and I are just stupid kids out of high school, and here's these guys with driving up in Model A Ford Roadsters with rumble seats and golf cart bags and stuff like that, knickers and golf. And I looked at Glenn and said, what are we doing here? We're in the wrong crowd. In any event, we took the test, and they said they'd post the results that afternoon. It was a long test, several hours. And that afternoon, sure enough, the tests were posted, and I had a very high score. And they immediately came out and then swore me into the Army Reserve, to be set up to be trained as a pilot. It's hard for you to imagine this, but I've never seen an airplane. I've never been close to an airplane. I've never been on an airfield. The only airplanes I ever saw was in pictures in newspapers and newsreels. We did go to the movies once a week, and the newsreels would see, war going on in Europe and so on. But all of a sudden, they're going to train me to be a pilot? So that didn't make any sense to me. But in any event, that's the way I started my military career.
Wow, that is something else. So you never even seen an airplane, and they're telling you you're going to fly one. It's intimidating enough that when you see one, but when you see one for the first time, you remember seeing that up in the air for the first time and being like, I'm supposed to fly one of those? That had to be slightly overwhelming. It's overwhelming enough to think you're going to fly in one,
right,
let alone pilot one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, they gave me my orders to start training early in 1943. I went into a training class in San Antonio, Texas, And for that whole year, I trained to be a pilot, from simple single-engine airplanes, open cockpit, to the final plane was the B-24, this huge airplane that was the largest at that time, largest bomber in the world. And I'm still, basically a kid. I am now a pilot. I'm trained, so I know how to fly, but I didn't know how to fly this big 4-engine booger. I mean, he was, massive. But I did train in that. That's where I got my crew, where this picture is.
The picture right here to the left of me, yep.
That was a crew that was put together in Mountain Home, Idaho. A bunch of young kids, all school people coming out of bombardier schools, navigator schools, and the different gunner schools. There was the B-24 and the B-17, the two major 4-engine bombers of World War II, had a crew of 10. 4 commissioned officers, there's the 2 pilots, a bombardier and a navigator, and then we had 6 enlisted people that were basically their position in combat was to man the guns. And when we were not in combat, they had other positions, like we had a radio man and chief engineer and people like that. But that was the group that I trained with, and left the United States to go, got my movement orders, and we left to go to Europe, to England, to start combat flying. And that was in early 1944. And so I flew combat missions in 1944, completed my 35 combat missions, flying over Germany primarily, by December, and started getting back to the States.
So yeah, that was my question. So how many missions did you get to fly before D-Day?
Well, actually, they didn't count a mission until you got to a certain either combat. You were attacked by the enemy, or you went across a certain geographical line, and if you didn't get to that point and had to turn back because of mechanical failures, engine quit or something, they didn't count it as a mission. I actually flew probably 60, 70 missions to get my 35 county missions. But when I got 35 county missions, then that was called a tour, and you were returned to the States to be retrained and go back.
Wow, that's something else. So all right, so D-Day. We've all seen the videos, we've seen the movies, so we understand. Like we're all fascinated by that, because it's just might be the most infamous day in our nation's history, and to think you were a part of that is just unbelievable. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about like that. How did you know like it was about to be D-Day? Did you know on D-Day or the day before? Like, I'm curious how the news was unfolded to you that this was about to happen.
Well, actually, the first combat mission, or our first official mission, when I got there, was to bomb some of the submarine pens up along the European coast. Because looking back in history, the merchant marine had transporting war materials and other materials for England, who had been devastated by Hitler's bombing missions over a year. So they had this program that President Roosevelt initiated called Lend-Lease, and they were lending or leasing military equipment, tanks, everything else, rifles, all the materials needed to fight a war to England, and they were transporting them across the ocean in what was called a merchant marine. And the German wolf packs, the submarines, were roaming around in packs, were torpedoing these planes and these ships. And it was, the newsreel was, okay, we've had 2 or 3 merchant marines, and you could see them in pictures going, turning up and going down the bottom of the ocean. So the wolf packs, the submarines, were doing devastating damage to our war effort. So our mission when we got there was to go along because when the submarines came back to be refitted, refueled, and get new personnel, fresh personnel, they had large caves along the European coast, and that's where they put and they called them pens, submarine pens, and that's where they put those subs in. So we were to go in there to try to do whatever damage we could to the submarine pens. The first mission and the second mission, we bombed those submarine pens, and my plane was so just shot up by ground fire and anti-aircraft fire that when we got it back to base, it got us back, but it was unflyable. So the next day we got another new B-24, and that was destroyed. And the third mission, I'll try to go through this quickly. We had returned from our bombing mission, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we got our shot of bourbon, and we went to the mess hall, got our dinner. We went to our bunk house and stretched out to get some rest. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, the squadron orderly would come in with his flashlight and wake us up 2 o'clock in the morning to get prepared for the next mission, which we didn't know what it would. We never knew what the mission was going to be until we got to the large briefing room, where there was all the crew members were in this large room, and the commanding officer, who incidentally was a full colonel, we called him the old man, and he was 25 years old. That was the Air Force. It was young kids. Anyway, he got up on the platform, something like this, larger, and pulled the curtains back over the large map of Europe. And we always saw that, because then we could see they would put strings to the target area and the route we were going to take. And right there in front of me, I knew there was going to be an invasion. We had no information about when or what or anything else. So right there in front of me is Operation Overlord, D-Day. It's the 6th of June, 1944. And I'm sitting there looking at that. I'm a kid, I'm not thinking much about it, It's a mission. So in the event, our mission for the day was to go fly across from our area in East Anglia, a part of England that faced the continent, to go across the channel into over a little town in France, a little town of Caen, C-A-N-N-E, where the intelligence people had said, well, there's 7 to 9 German panzer units sitting back there. They're just waiting to figure out where to go to start fighting to. And so our mission was to destroy the road system so they would not keep them from getting there, but slow them up. Well, we got over the target area, and we started circling because there was a solid cloud undercast underneath us. We could not see where to bomb, and we always did visual bombing. There were no instrumented bombing like they do now. We had to see what we were doing. Well, we couldn't see anything, so we just circled the target area, the whole group, 18 B-24s, and circled, and finally the commanding officer radioed to all of us and said, well, we got to go back to base, guys, because we're running low on fuel. Well, we started back to base, and as I got over the English Channel, my engineer, enlisted guy, who was looking at the fuel gauges, whispered to me, he says, we're about to run out of fuel. We're just about there. So I looked back over and I could see that. So I bailed my crew out over the channel. I had a little bell, ring, ding, 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 back in it, and everybody started jumping. Well, just as I did that, all 4 of these huge engines, now these are, I I'm not sure you can keep this in thought process, but there's 4 engines. They're 1,250 horsepower apiece. So it's almost 5,000 horsepower. Horrible noise. And so all of a sudden, all 4 engines just stop. No fuel. Deadly silence. So I pushed the control wheel to the firewall to start a dive, because if I didn't, the plane would flip over its back and stall out, and we definitely would not be able to survive that. So as I started going toward the ocean, up toward the ground, the water, I looked back to see if my crew was out, and as I looked back over to see and it looked like they were all gone, I saw all my bombs were still there. All that load of bombs I was carrying to drop on Con was still there. Go, wow, what do I do? Well, we had a mechanical lever down at the base of the control panel. You pull that, and through cables in the system, you pull the pins on the bomb bay doors of the B-24. Huge, big bomb bay doors, and they all fell off. It also pulled the pins on 10 500-pound bombs in racks, and they all dropped off. They dropped out just as I was going faster and faster in this dive. And actually, it was fortunate because I was so close to the water when I pulled the pins and the bombs dropped out that they didn't have time to arm. So actually 10 500-pound bombs are probably still at the bottom of the English Channel. If you want to go looking for them. And as I get to water and I flare out, I pull the plane out of this dive right in front of me, and I had nothing to do with this, people. Right in front of me is this huge rock bar, right in the channel, out in the middle of the channel. It's like God said it there. Well, I knew you were going to be here, so here's your place to land. And I flared out the plane and hit the rock, just that fast. I'm probably going 400, 500, 600 miles an hour by this time. And as I hit that rock, remember now, my bomb bay doors are out. They're off. So that big, huge bomb bay starts scooting up this rock. It scoops it up, and the whole rear end of the plane breaks off. And leaves it, I'm still skidding down. I'm slowing up, but I'm still going mighty fast. And it wears off, tears all 4 engines out. I see them pulled out of the wings, and I'm still sliding. And it grinds up the fuselage to the only thing left when we finally stopped. The other pilot and the navigator, who said he wasn't going to jump, was up in the cockpit with us. We finally stopped. The only thing left was the cockpit and the wing. That was it. So we kicked the windshield out and climbed out on the wing. And by this time, the sun's shining. Where were you, son? Where were you when I needed you? Anyway, we climbed out on the wing. We sat there and checked our body parts to see, are we still have all the body parts, Because theoretically, we should not have survived. And theoretically, my crew who bailed out should have survived. Unfortunately, several of them were drowned in English Channel because they didn't know how to get out of their parachutes over water. So the canvas came down on top of them and they drowned. So in the event, over a couple hours, we sat there on the wing in the sun. I saw this little tiny figure way over on the English coast. I could just barely see the coast. I saw this figure start out in a boat, and he rowed out to us and picked us up and took us back to the base, to the ground, to England. And I got a phone, called the base, and gave them information of what had gone on and where we were. And they sent an ambulance down to carry us around all of what they used to call MASH units. They're military area surgical hospitals. That's what MASH stands for. And they'd set up these tent hospitals all over southern England because they were anticipating a huge amount of casualties from the invasion. In any event, I toured those MASH units for about 10 days trying to find my crew, and only found one guy out of that whole mess. And got him up, went back to England, to our base, and during that time, there had been from D-Day to when I finally got back, probably a month, the whole base had been turned over and converted from B-24s to B-17s. So I flew 32 missions, a balance of my missions in B-17s, which again, fortunately, was a much better aircraft for that combat zone, high altitude flying. The B-24 wasn't designed for that. So I finished 32 missions in B-17s, got out of the service, went back home, and went back into civilian life. So, and then I went into the reserve.
I mean, I've heard the story before, but that's why I wanted everyone to hear it, as many people. That's why we're recording this right now. That's why I want to get this online, because this story, I mean, there's never going to be, I mean, wars are, obviously, if there's ever another war, it's not going to be anything like that one, right? We all know that. And so this story is incredible. You were saved for a reason. You were saved to share this story for the next several decades, and you have. And that's why I want to document this. That's why I want to bring people in here to hear this story, because there's a reason that you were saved with that story. And it's already changed many lives, and it's already impacted a lot of people, but it's going to continue to impact people's lives and give them an understanding of the sacrifice that men and women have made for our country. It's one thing to look at our country right now through the lens of social media, but that's not the foundation of our nation, right? And it's stories like these that, I mean, he's got a story, but there's thousands and thousands of stories just like it of wonderful women and wonderful men who've sacrificed loved ones and stuff. And so that's why, like, for Veterans Day, like, this is gonna be the greatest Veteran Day I've ever experienced, because I'm looking out at the, like, you can have a restaurant and you can have people come drink beer and sell cheeseburgers, but, like, if you can't, like, have people with stories like this, now everybody has a story like this, but you signed up to protect our country, to serve our country, and if I can't one day out of the year give you a cheeseburger and French fries, then that's ridiculous. Like, come in, you've earned that just simply for just giving your time. And I'm saying thank you so much to all of the veterans here and anybody who's given their time and anybody who loves this country, because I tell you what, if Cledis taught me anything, it was love God and love your country and do what you can to protect them. And so we've got a long way to go in this country right now. We all know it's divided, but boy, I tell you, when I hear stories like this, it just, if we all can't agree on the beauty of what has been sacrificed on the altar of freedom, then we've got some bigger issues. And so I'm grateful for everybody coming. I'm so grateful for your story. Like, I don't want to worry out. So let's just wrap this up by just kind of letting us know, like, what. So that was 1944. So what's been happening in the decades since?
Well, I got back to service. I mean, civilian life. I went to work for a large corporation called Honeywell. I had a career with them. I retired from Honeywell, started my own business. And just like Shane here, I sold my business. Then I went into newspaper business, an industry paper, ran that for a while, closed it down, and then I went to work for a nonprofit organization called SCORE, which mentors people who are starting businesses and are having problems. And our mentor program was to help them figure out what they can do to turn things around. So I did that, and finally retired, 4 retirements, so now here I am. And my purpose now, and I think the reason I'm still here, is because God's given me a reason to be here. And I'd like to talk to young people about
Everybody that he represents. For you and the so grateful. Yeah, if you got, I don't care if it's a mystery, right?